All right, talking to us from Fort Collins, Colorado, Mark Engberg, who did the top 100 horror movies of all time list. Now we're going to tackle the infamous or famous top 10 TV shows of all time. Mark, you have Breaking Bad #1. It just finished, so it's kind of like an emotional #1 choice. Why is Breaking Bad the #1 TV show of all time?
It's probably the greatest metamorphosis of character I've ever seen on a television show. So many shows that we see have the trendy routine where you have a badass character like Sawyer on the Lost Island, and he basically ends up spends season after season pussing out. And he turns out being a very, it's the Han Solo formula. It's that he's somebody that we fear, and he's mysterious, and we want to know how he got there, and then as we find out more and more about him, then we find out, oh, he's just a big, lovable teddy bear. Breaking Bad is the opposite. It starts off with this great, jovial, caring kind of chemistry teacher that we all probably had at one point in our lives, and just by 5 seasons, and something that I think that the 5th season really caught on that was just amazing is that really the entire story takes place in the set of a year. 2 years.
2 years, yeah.
It's really just like a very quick time in their history where just everything went to hell.
So basically, so what you're saying is that there's a beginning, a middle, end, and it's like they like what makes Breaking Bad great is that like a show like Sopranos, which you both have on our list, they made a concept, but they didn't know where it was going to go. They just kind of went year by year. Whereas like the creator Gilligan had basically he knew where they were going. He knew the ending of this show.
Yeah, supposedly.
Supposedly.
Only. Yeah, I mean, there'll always be doubts that I've always think that to some degree that they have a genesis of an idea of every successful show. Like for example, Lost. I bet you that they knew kind of where they wanted to go with it, but one of the reasons why I bailed on Lost is because I was convinced that they really didn't know where they were going with it.
Well, that's the great point. Lost, where even if he didn't know where they're going, he ended the show properly. And you kind of wondered, because you brought up Lost, which is one of those shows that could have been on the list if we did this show maybe 10 years ago, or 5 years ago, but it failed miserably with its ending, and whereas Breaking Bad had one of the great ending seasons of all time.
Yeah, it was truly a saga for an episodic television show. It was one that I would consider as just as good as any full-length movie in terms of development, arc structure, conflict resolution. The fact that you were completely rooting for this character, and then by the end of the 5th season, you were still rooting for him, like it in a weird twisted way. That I don't think that there was a single person who watched the second to last episode, not the grand finale, not Felina.
Yeah.
The one before it was that cliffhanger with the neat shot of scotch on the bar.
Yeah.
That there was a single person who thought, "That's right, Hank, go get him." I love that because up until that point.
Well, wait a minute. You just made a Freudian slip. You just said, "That's right, Hank, go get him," but you meant Walt.
Is that right?
Yeah.
You're right. I did say it. You have to excuse because there's so many times throughout that show I was just cheering for Hank. When Hank was in the gun battle in the parking lot with the cousins, I was both feet on the ground, yelling at the TV screen, "Get him, Hank!" That's pretty rare for me. I'm usually very, very passive whenever I watch television programming.
But you brought up Hank in a way because Hank was a person that we rooted for Hank because he seemed to be the one who was most morally sound. Like he was a cop and he seemed to be inside of himself. But also, take the jump on your point as well. Season 4. You had Walt versus Gus, who were both horrible characters, and there was almost like a feeling on people's side. Some people were like also rooting for Gus, even though Gus was a horrible person as well. Like the whole Gus versus Walt finale. that there was like almost people on Team Gus, which he was also a bad guy too. For some reason he just made us root for like all these characters, even though they weren't, they were all morally corrupt except for Hank, I guess.
Yeah, even Hank's wife has got her own.
Sure, yeah, of course.
Got her own kleptomania.
Yeah.
Addiction.
And of course, Skylar, she basically broke bad as well, right?
Yeah, and I think that the interesting thing about Skylar is I felt bad for Anna Gunn because I heard that she got a lot of hate mail for people who consider Skylar the ultimate hypocrite.
On the internet, she is like fanboy, like mud in a lot of ways. Like, but it's a great performance. I don't get it, but like, yeah, on the internet, on the bloggings, people do not like her character, Skylar.
I think it's probably because she was the first one who told Walt that he couldn't smoke marijuana. And that is just, in general, just something people do not want to hear. Okay. Or where it came from or what it's about. And that right there was just kind of like where Skylar cemented her character as the anti-enabler. She's not gonna put up any of this with any of Walt's addictions or mysteries. And Walt knows that, so that's why he keeps everything a secret for 3.5 seasons.
Yeah. Okay, so we'll go through the top 10 list because this is Breaking Bad is the one that provoked it. I have Breaking Bad as number 3, and I have Mad Men as number 1, which I still, even though it's still going on, I still think it's the greatest show of all time. But you also have Mad Men on your list as well, right?
I do. I don't know what number it is, but I know that I've always been a fan of Mad Men. Was less impressed with this last season than I was with the ones before it, but I don't know. Maybe I just wasn't in the right mood for an entire season.
Well, it's because Don is becoming a better person, right? But they're doing it in a very sneaky way.
Yeah, I guess so. Hold on a minute. Drawing up I have Mad Men as number 8.
Yeah. But the reason why I have Mad Men 1, so we can jump to your list in a second, is that because Breaking Bad for me is like, he's like, Walter White's like the Peyton Manning of TV shows, meaning that he's on that show, he's great, but then the whole structure around it is not as great as, say, Mad Men, for example, or The Wire, easily examples where even if Don Draper's gone, the show still works because arguably there is 2 main characters on the show, Peggy and Don. And also there's more of a thematic about society, and this makes me like the kind of a sentimental idealist, but they're really talking about something, like there's something more profound just in the Mad Men and The Wire, and plus it's great television, which makes me have those 2 shows above Breaking Bad.
Well, those are more character influence ideas, and I can totally see why you would think that, and why you kind of hold that kind of rating over a show like Breaking Bad. Breaking Bad is still a character-driven show, but there's so much that happens in the plot lines that it is a character show, but we consider it more of an action-related show, something like The Sons of Anarchy, or something that's just truly fun to watch. Whereas Mad Men is something that's, I don't know if Mad Men is even fun to watch. It's just fun to think.
I guess my big point is thematically driven. They're talking about something more profound, about like humanity in general, and not that Breaking Bad doesn't get to there. It's just that it's more fleshed out, and there's more like interesting characters. You know what I mean? Like then like you could, like Walter White is the show, and then basically you take Walter White out of Breaking Bad, there is no Breaking Bad, and you can still take Don Draper out of Mad Men and still have Mad Men.
Yeah, and that has worked in certain episodes of Mad Men where they've done that, where it's like, for example, Don Draper's escape from California. Remember that when it was in the second season when he's on a business trip and all of a sudden he just bails for 3 days.
Yeah, for 3 weeks. Yeah.
It's not even 3 days. It's like for a long period of time. Based on escapism.
But I just like the thematic. Well, let's go to your list here because we have very similar lists, but we'll get to we both have Arrested Development on the list. You have a number 5, I have a number 10, and then you have The Simpsons at number 10, which is like, what did you think of the rest of the development, the Netflix version season?
You know, I haven't gotten through very far with it. I only got to about the third episode on it, and we had to cut cable for because we were moving and stuff, and we haven't restarted our Netflix membership yet. But I'll tell you this, that I was kind of disappointed with the first few episodes, and I think I know why. It was really bothering me. But in the original 3 seasons, the way that the timing and the pacing worked was that the characters of the show would do something funny, and then Ron Howard's narration would kind of be an extra punchline kicker.
Yeah.
They switched that. It was the other way around. Basically the few episodes I saw, Ron Howard's narration is basically driving the show. And
yeah.
He's the one that makes the initial joke, and then the characters visually do something to kind of as a payoff on the joke. And I thought that was a much weaker kind of comedy. I don't know. Maybe that's looking too into it.
No. That's
there's something different.
There's a great point to that. I kind of liked the Netflix version more than others because I liked how they gave each character an individual episode, and then everything kind of ties in at the end. But I guess you got to get to the end of it. But that's the same thing with Netflix. You can watch it whenever you want, I guess, right?
Yeah. And that was really what Vince Gilligan credits.
100%.
Incredible Nielsen jump for Breaking Bad was that the accessibility and binge watching is all the craze now. People don't want to mess with episodic television week after week and season after season. I'll just tell you what, I'll just do all of Breaking Bad right now.
Yeah, but then I did that. Like I think I went a little crazy. I think I watched the first 3 seasons in a span of like a couple of months. I don't think that was a good thing.
You go a little nuts, don't you?
Yeah, it was very dark. It got me. It really affected me. That was the show that kind of, especially the first 2 seasons. It was very dark. Like there was a lot of. Then all of a sudden it got into a certain rhythm, and then you knew what kind of the tone was. But the first couple seasons, you have to really get into it.
Yeah, that happened with me with Treme. I watched like all 3 seasons all in a row in one week or something, and I was all like listening to jazz music and cooking a lot of Cajun food the whole time. That's just with your persona.
So why The Simpsons at number 10, which is still, how many seasons is it? I remember this show I was in high school and the show was going on. And that's
me too.
So why number 10 for Simpsons? Is it still going strong?
It's still going strong, but I haven't had time for it. I'm now in a system with The Simpsons, which I bet a lot of people are too, and that is that instead of messing with it on Sunday nights, just wait for it to come out on DVD or Blu-ray, and that way you can kind of watch it commercial-free. The package is nice if you're a fan of the show. The booklet is very informative, and it's even though DVR sets this up, the greatest thing to do with The Simpsons is to laugh at something, then rewind it, watch it over again, and with subtitles and whatever else you need, which we get with the Blu-ray copy. So, long story short, I don't watch The Simpsons on Sunday nights anymore. Haven't for years.
Yeah.
And probably wouldn't even consider it in the top 10 if I didn't remember it from high school. I mean, I remember The Simpsons through high school, college, those carefree days after college when you were looking for jobs.
Yeah.
And I'm still able to sit down and watch an episode of it and think these characters fondly. It's lasted. It's imprinted on me.
So then, speaking of nostalgia, you also have Cheers on your list as well, which if I was doing a top 20 list, Cheers would be on my list.
You know, I watched the first season of Cheers not that long ago, and I was really amazed at how well the writing had held up.
The funny thing is, I just watched the first season like 3 weeks ago of Cheers, and there's a lot of things that point out to me that, one, it was very much a dramedy in so many different ways. 2, Shelley Long is brilliant, and 3, they only had one setting. They never left Cheers, and it was all A plots. There was no B plots in the entire first season.
Yeah, it was very. you could tell that they were going somewhere with, but the storyline was based on Diane, first and foremost, and that Sam was just kind of the macho, the macho player at Diane's work.
Yeah.
So it must have really thrown. Like, I think that if you had told Les Charles and Glenn Burroughs back then that Diane was going to be leaving, from then on, I think that would have blown their minds, and they probably would have even given up.
She's brilliant, though, eh? Like, isn't she Shelley Long's so good playing that character?
Absolutely. She was. I think that the greatest mistake that show had made, even though that they made up for brilliantly with Kirstie Alley, but that they should have done whatever was possible to keep Shelley Long on the show.
But you can also argue that her character was kind of done. Like, there wasn't really many more places they could take that character.
Well, but that was the beautiful thing, was that the more we got to know her character, the more asinine her interest became, to the point that I think it would have been kind of funny. Maybe not for the whole 10 or 11 seasons, however long the show went.
Yeah.
But for at least a few more, I would I don't know, maybe she would have gotten interested in astronautics.
It got a little slapsticky, though, right? Like, after what happens with a lot of comedies, where after 4 seasons, that's when the actors start making a lot of money because their contracts are over. That's why they keep doing these long shows, and it gets a little slapsticky. They don't know what to do anymore, so they kind of make the characters kind of turn the caricatures, not like the real characters that they were at the beginning.
Yeah, and then they jump the shark.
Yeah, but then we still watch it for whatever reason, right?
Yeah, and we love to see. I mean, if the show is that important to us, and we've been watching it, we've invested that much time and routine to it, then eventually we're going to put up with pretty much anything, unless we, in my case, lost. Unless I just felt like utterly betrayed by. I'll tell you what specifically what it was with Lost that made me that made me end it. Was I heard that the writers started coming up with, and this is hearsay, I've never had this proven, but I heard that the writers were getting ideas the bloggers were saying, and that they were just basically taking ideas off the internet and going there with them, and that's when I was like, oh, hell no. Then that's just when things are going to get ridiculous. Yeah,
it's too bad, because that show could have been one of the better shows of all time, but it really, especially now, like after all these shows have come out, like it really pales. I started watching the first season because I wanted to show my girlfriend, because she missed it. I was like, you know what? It's not that great. It kind of loses its luster during. It doesn't stand the test of time, really. So.
Yeah, literally.
So you have Boardwalk Empire number 9. It's right as we're doing this podcast. They're in the middle of season 4. Why Boardwalk? Why is that a top 10 show of all time?
It's the closest thing that you'll get to watching an actual Scorsese picture. In terms of tone, mood, you get to teach yourself a little bit of history. I mean, you're going to have to go on Google or Wikipedia or whatever your database is to fact check and stuff.
Yeah.
They do take incredible liberties with the history and whatnot. But it's very nicely paced. People complain about that it's that they call it board talk empire.
Yeah.
There is a lot of talk. There's a lot of exposition to it, but in terms of the historical content, it really is just mesmerizing to me.
It's very well done. It's very well done, and it has a lot of violence in it. And but there is a lot of plots. There's about 4 or 5 plots in each episode, so you really got to be focusing on what's going on but it all comes together. It really does. And in terms of a storytelling way, like in the end of the season, it really does come together.
Well, I'm currently on season 3 because I just got it from. I didn't have HBO. I just got it on Blu-ray. So I've been taping season 4, but I've just had my. The tough thing with shows like The Sopranos and Breaking Bad and Boardwalk Empire, though, is that even if you don't watch the episode, and you don't know what happened, what's been happening with the ongoing season, you're still kind of screwed because you know which actors are still on the show. You know, like there's just no avoiding it. There's just no and so, for example, I actually wanted to keep Breaking Bad in my back pocket for years. I didn't want to binge watch that because I wanted, like a fine wine, I wanted to be able to enjoy it.
Yeah.
But I felt I was pressured to binge watch that one because I was like, nah, someone's going to blow it. Entertainment Weekly is going to put it on the front page or something.
Yeah.
Bryan Cranston's going to slip. Happens all the time.
There is a timeline of when it comes out. Because speaking of Boardwalk, you talked about let's talk about The Sopranos, because that's sort of we're talking about all these shows: Mad Men, Breaking Bad, Boardwalk Empire. It kind of starts with The Sopranos, like they call it the third renaissance of television, where David Chase kind of set up a blueprint, and of course he had Terrence Winter and Matthew Weiner respectively as his two main co-writers in the last few seasons. Of course, Winter did Boardwalk Empire. Matthew Weiner ends up doing Mad Men. It's on both of our top 10 lists, and it kind of set the tone of all those shows we've just been talking about.
Yeah.
And it's also about violence and about the criminal underground as well. But really, it's a show about depression. Yeah.
Yeah, but I do think it's important to note that, once again, these are cute gangsters. These aren't. These aren't. I think a lot of people got the wrong impression about what's going on in the criminal organized underworld, and thinking that they're these lovable guys with good looking children and fun kind of lives, and that they're regular guys. I always kind of shake my head at that. What was they call it, the cute guy? I think it was the author William Goldman. Who he was actually talking about the gangsters in The Godfather.
Yeah.
Because people had considered that was like big time mafia. I was like, no, those are not the kind of guys that are running the mob in New York City. They're very dirty men.
And then, The Sopranos, like, nobody tells the truth on that show. There's not one dialogue of truth on that show ever.
Like Breaking Bad, it's a story principally of a guy who has a very corruptible job, and he's forced to just lie upon lie upon lie.
And he gets worse and worse and worse. Like, he gets worse. He doesn't get better. Like, then that's the whole thing. That's where they got stuck in, like, season 5 and season 6, because this guy's not going to change. He's only going to get worse. So why are we still watching?
Yeah. Yeah, we want to see how much further he's going to go. We want to see. I would just want to see how he was going to get out of this. I want to see how this whole thing was going to resolve.
But we didn't see that, though. That's the problem with the show. It's like, what did you think of the ending?
Okay, no, wait. Just to be clear, we're back on The Sopranos, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. You know what? Now that James Gandolfini has passed, I think that ending has never been more appropriate. I think that it's. I don't know why that's so. The fact that James Gandolfini is dead, but why that's relevant to that very enigmatic, cryptic ending, where everybody looked at their DVRs or VCRs or whatever it was back then and wondered if the cable had gone out. That I think that was a perfect representation of what it's like to be Tony Soprano. That he's just going to be spending his entire life going from restaurant to public place, always looking out of his back. Every bell that rings, every person that walks in is a potential assassin.
Yeah.
Everybody is suspicious. And the blackout was just kind of we were kind of waiting for something like a gunshot. We're waiting for some kind of resolution, some kind of climactic ending to it, and there wasn't one. And that was kind of, I think that was Dave Chase's way of saying, well, such is life.
But also, you can argue that, like, what he's saying is that The Sopranos is going on, but we're going to stop watching. If you want to be poetic about it.
Yeah. That's going deep, my friend.
Is it going? But he's a complicated, deep guy. So I have 24 as my like fun favorite show of the time, because I think that when that show was at its best, it was so much fun. But you have the creators' next show, Homeland, in your top 10 shows. And Homeland I'm not crazy about, but I still watch it. Like, why do you have Homeland in your top 10 list?
Just addictive. It's one of those very kind of cartoonish action stories. Is the kind of thing that would go on in the CIA. Is this the kind of thing that we would can we really expect their assassins to try to kill each other with tripped up pacemakers? No, the whole thing is pretty ridiculous, but it's fun, and you really got to credit Claire Danes for making it so fun. It's one of those shows that it wouldn't have worked. Like Veep, it wouldn't have worked if there hadn't been this kind of performance.
I'll give you that, yeah. And but then Brody, the guy who plays Brody, I don't know if it's a good performance or not. Like, you know what I mean? You're kind of perplexed by this guy. Like, you hate his guts, but then you kind of feel for him at the same time, which makes it interesting.
It's a subdued performance.
What's that?
And it's a subdued performance.
Yeah.
He doesn't overact. He doesn't take up a lot of scenery. He's what you would believe it would be to be an American spy. What I would believe to be an American spy. I would not picture it to be. In eerie kind of ways, it reminds me of Timothy McVeigh.
Okay.
It's just like somebody who's silent, very quiet, and up to no global good whatsoever.
He's kind of a basic guy, though. Like, I don't think he's that bright.
Who, Brody?
Yeah.
I think Brody's very bright. I think he. Granted, I haven't seen anything from the third season yet, but
he doesn't. Don't worry. In the first 2 episodes, as we're doing this podcast, he hasn't appeared yet. He hasn't shown up in season 3 yet.
And I think that was. I think that the creators had a great answer for that. That they were at because reporters were asking about that and wondering if he was kind of being written out of the season, and they responded like, no, just that his character hasn't entered the overall story arc yet. It's not time for him to come yet. And I think that was great, because I think that there's so many times that the shows kind of blow that outline, because they're like, well, we got to get, even though it's not significant to see him, we got to get that actor in here because people want to see whoever, the people want to see Kevin Bacon, and so that kind of messes with the timeline in the story structure. So I'm really glad that they did. If he's not relevant to the story yet, then don't introduce him yet. We'll get to him later.
So then we got. But I still think that you're talking about fun. When 24 was at its best, like maybe it went a little too long, but season 4, season 5, it had what you're just describing, but it had that timeline about like the hour, and then had Jack Bauer, which I think is one of the great characters of all time. And do you know what I mean? Like I love the fun of that show, and about the crazy, like how you describe the CIA and like terrorists and that kind of stuff. And I was on the edge of my seat, whereas Homeland's kind of obviously more of a dramatic, character-driven story, I guess. Whereas 24 was all plot. It was just all about plot.
24 was much more. I've only seen the first season, but from what I remember, it was much more charged.
Yeah,
it was. There was a lot more suspense, a lot more different plot device factors at work, but Homeland keeps slowing it down, saying, well, let's find out why Carrie is crazy like she is. Let's talk about Saul for a bit. And we'll center on some of the other characters. But no, I agree. But
24, it doesn't have, like, 24 as a gadget. And it kind of was the best thing about the show, but it was also the worst thing about the show. The clock, right? Like it was a gadget that basically kind of hurt them a lot. It also was, when it was at its best, it was thrilling, kind of a thing.
Yeah. It was a gimmick that kind of kept reminding me that I had to go to the bathroom.
Yeah, but they are But they are coming back, which is amazing. It's like one of the only shows that I can remember that has been gone for like 4 or 5 years, and it's like the fans want it to come back, and it's coming back. So,
what's your opinion on that? Is that going to fly, do you think, or is that going to?
I think it's going to fly because it's going to bring back a new generation of fans, and I think that. But also the old school, it's sort of like the old school is going to like they missed it. They missed it. I think that you get a little tired of something, and then. It's like a band, right? A band basically does like 5 albums in a row, and it's like, okay, and then they go away for a few years, and they come back, and it's like, yeah, they're back. They got a new sound. Yeah. You know what I mean? It's kind of like that. The band's back together.
It's kind of like what the X-Files did when they came out with the X-Files 2. Kind of like, really?
Yeah, but yeah, the same thing, you could also say that. It's like, the time is done. It's over. Like, don't come back kind of a thing.
Yeah.
Because I think Chris Carter, he wanted to have mini films, and just people weren't interested anymore.
Yeah, it was a sad day I've never been a big fan of X-Files, but I respect X-Files primarily because if it wasn't for X-Files, we wouldn't have Walter White.
Well, yes, because Gilligan, right? Like, he was a writer on the show, and Bryan Cranston didn't he guest star in an episode?
Yeah, and I think that was basically the meeting that did it. They said, okay, well, we're going to work together. And there've been a couple of shout outs to X-Files, little like trivia things that they've thrown out in Breaking Bad.
So, go ahead.
A goofy one. This is just a trivia that I love is that every time Walt refers to the Erlenmeyer flask, that's the name of an actual piece of chemistry equipment, but it's also the name of an X-Files episode.
Okay. So let's go to the Comedy Central shows, because I got Daily Show on the list, and I know it's not a conventional TV show, but I put it on the list because I think it's a really smart show. And then you got the South Park high on your list.
South Park just belongs on the same the same standard as Simpsons, and that's just a show that I've always watched and will always watch. I love that they're able to put that into production as quickly as that they do, and therefore that the humor is very timely. It's very on time. It's very ahead of its time. You can tell that a lot of times that there are episodes I'll watch that are brand new episodes, and you're kind of thinking, well, that's kind of funny. And then I'll watch them again when they come out in DVD, and they're even funnier because it actually happened.
Yeah.
It's like in the time where it took for it to come out on disc. It actually the point that Matt Stone and Trey Parker made was actually turned out to be even more significant than you thought at first.
It's smart. Like they're taking shots at things that need to be taken shots at, right?
Yeah. There's I believe that the last episode that they did was picking out the cable companies, where they're just kind of the cable companies are just basically rubbing their nipples to anybody who wants to try to find an alternative to their programming.
Yeah.
But they're just simply, those are two guys, Matt Stone and Trey Parker. Those two guys are just simply not afraid to speak ill of anybody.
And they've been going strong for a long time. Those two guys, that's kind of remarkable. Like how they just keep doing it.
Well, they keep crushing on every medium. Whether it's a television show or a Broadway musical or a movie about puppets.
Yeah.
It's like,
which is a great movie, by the way. Team America, great movie.
Loved it. Have you ever seen the unrated version?
No.
It's horrendous, but it's worth watching for just unrated sakes.
But I got Daily Show. I don't know if you watch it, but I'm not trying to be political here. I just think that it's very funny, but it's very smart at the same time. And he's a good interviewer too. Like he brings out issues that need to be brought out, and you can say it's left bias, but he takes shots at the left as well when they need to be taken down. But it's really just showing the media how ridiculous they are sometimes.
Jon Stewart really is nothing if not fair. he always will point out he'll point out the flaws in his own side of the argument, and I think that's what makes him not just a great comedian but a great newscaster. I people scoff when I call him that, but I don't know. He's a newscaster. He's a newsman. He just delivers it in an entirely different way than Brian Wilson.
Yeah, but he shows, like, it's one camera. The camera's on him, and he riffs, like, for half the show, right? Like, and that's kind of remarkable what he does.
Yeah, he enlightens and he educates, and he's able to depict both sides of an argument, both sides of an issue, which is something that a lot of entertainers who become educators can't do. That they're not able to present both sides, an objective point of view is what I'm trying to say. And Jon Stewart is remarkable at that. So is Stephen Colbert, even though Stephen Colbert has done something that nobody else has ever done,
yeah.
Whereas he's able to deliver the news in a comical way in an entirely subjective and parody.
Some can argue that, and the person I live with can basically say, the Colbert Report is better than the Daily Show because he does something even more remarkable than what Jon Stewart does. Like, he takes it to another level.
Yeah, in every meaning of that phrase, Colbert took it to another level. But I don't think that necessarily makes him a better entertainer or educator than Jon Stewart. It's so different that it's really incomparable to me.
But he's more pulp culture. He gets more in the pulp culture world, whereas Jon Stewart is mainly about government and politics, kind of a thing.
And Stewart's also not afraid to point out flaws within the media machine itself. Stewart will be the first person to criticize somebody like Robert Murdoch or Richard Branson.
Yeah.
Or
but they're easy. They're easy to take shots at.
True. I mean, but I'm just throwing those names out as examples.
Yeah.
That's just the kind of format. Basically, if you're up to no good, then Stewart's kind of like a lighthearted version of 60 Minutes.
Yeah.
It's a half an hour.
All right, so we got to get to, why do you have Rome? Why is Rome so high up on your list? Why is it number 3?
Rome would have made it to more seasons if it had more money, or if HBO was able to. It was just too grand. It was too big. It's too big of a story to tell without that kind of a budget. And I think with the kind of budget they had, I don't even know what the numbers are, but it was amazing what the production behind Rome was able to put on the screen for us. And a lot of people dismissed Rome because it was very, it's basically ancient Sopranos. A lot of it is how mob mentality was established within culture, how it grew out of politics, and they all just happen to be Italian too.
Yeah.
And there's definitely that tongue-in-cheek reference to it, but the historical recreation of Rome is just mesmerizing. That it's better than anything I've ever seen in a movie. In terms of for example, you look at something like Gladiator. You're watching a movie about gladiators.
Yeah.
Just because people just didn't look like Russell Crowe, but back then, or Joaquin Phoenix is like a charming emperor.
Yeah.
That there was something that was much more realistic and not that I was there, but accurate, for lack of a better term. It really captured the time that they were looking to get. I think that's something that Boardwalk Empire can do as far as period pieces.
So how many seasons did it last? Did Rome last?
Only 2.
And it just got canceled, right?
Yeah, it got canceled. That basically out of financial. They just couldn't afford it. HBO couldn't keep it on.
With the ratings that it was, because Game of Thrones is like huge budget, but they get gigantic ratings and they get gigantic DVD sales, so they can rationalize their budget, I guess, right?
Yeah. Yeah, but unfortunately, that was about as far as the marketing machine could go, because nobody was buying. There were no Rome action figures, no Rome T-shirts.
Yeah.
No Rome Halloween masks.
There is a lot of memorabilia for the Game of Thrones, isn't there? They are making a lot of money on that show, aren't they?
Hell yeah, they know how to crank that engine. And I would have put Game of Thrones on my list too had I not. I'm curious how much I would have liked the show if I hadn't read the books.
Oh, you've read the books?
Well, I'm currently reading the books. I'm currently on A Feast of Crows right now, which is not this next season coming up, but the one after that. And,
okay, so they got they got a lot of material then, I guess.
Oh yeah, there's a book after that, and I think I don't know how it ends, God willing. But,
yeah.
But I don't know if it's over. I don't know if he's still coming out with more. Maybe they'll do a Stephen King and write a sequel 20 years later. Who knows? But I think the show is only set to go for 7 seasons. I could be wrong on that. But I like the show. I just I really don't know if I would like the show. Well, I think I would like the show better if I wouldn't.
Yeah, because I haven't read the books, but basically, so I don't know what's happening. I was shocked about that second to last episode. I didn't think it was necessary, but I guess it was in the book, right? The wedding, the red wedding.
Yep,
I didn't think that was necessary. Yeah. I didn't need to see that.
I'll tell you this about. I mean, I don't want to tell you anything that's going to happen in the next season, but at that point in the book. That point in the book happens in the middle of the third book, in the middle of I just finished the book. Can't even think what it's called.
Yeah, sure. Okay.
It happens in the middle of that book, and then everything after that in the book is just jaw dropper after jaw dropper. So I think that we're going to expect a lot of things like that in the next season.
Just the violence. I didn't need to see the violence. Like it was just too violent for me. Like, you know what I mean? Like you know what I mean? Some pregnant woman. I didn't need to see that. That crossed the line.
I haven't even caught up to it. I know what happens, but I've only seen the first couple episodes of Game of Thrones on the 3rd season.
Yeah.
And it's not a bad show. It's good. But I'm not as enthralled with it as I kind of hoped I would be. I was kind of hoping for something more along the lines of Lord of the Rings or.
Just to add up to because I the 2 shows on my list that you said we were talking before, you haven't even watched yet. Downton Abbey is terrific. Women love it, and it's like the reason why it's such a terrific show is that all the characters are good, and there's no violence, there's no sex, there's like only like kisses and stuff like that, and it's still a very effective show, and it shows that we can still watch high quality television without violence and sex and like over the top stuff. And it's a very well done show. And then I have The West Wing, which I'm shocked that you haven't seen yet, considering your family background and stuff. But basically, it is a terrific show all the way around. Like it's like just those are 2 shows you can watch with your wife, no problem at all.
I've met a few actors. All I can say about The West Wing is that when I was living in D.C., I met a lot of extras who worked on The West Wing.
Yeah.
And because it's a business. I mean, there was so much filming in D.C., extras and atmosphere for that it was this own little clique that was going on among the actors in D.C. And all that they would, what every single one of them would say was how if you got Martin Sheen in a room, that guy would talk your ear off.
Yeah.
In terms of just, and that I thought was extraordinary because big stars, usually they don't have much to say to actors or to anybody unless it's a news reporter. They're usually just very shy. They're in the moment. They're
working, right? They're in the middle of their job. So
right, yeah. And I can always appreciate that. I've never bothered an actor unless he bothered me first.
Yeah.
And but I thought that was extraordinary of how. That Martin Sheen, not just it was like it would be like one thing was just like one or 2 extras told me that, but every single one was like, oh my God, Martin Sheen again. Just here's the thing about the show. It's like it's how
how Washington could work. It's not obviously how Washington is. You know what I mean? But it's realistic enough if you talk to like certain people who like lobbyists and people in the government. You know, they say there's certain realisms to it, but it's not how it works because it's not as idealistic as the show is. But it's just it's a dichotomy of how the great country of America could work if they had like a kind of like a highly intelligent president, and that's what it's. You know what I mean? Like with highly intelligent people around him.
We got one of those. We just need to get him to agree with Congress.
Well, but at the same time, there's the Obama, like, yeah, it's like, but it's interesting about the Obama thing because there is obviously an underlying racism going on that nobody wants to talk about, but there is with America. Like, I think people are going to the right because of the racism. They don't even, maybe consciously or unconsciously, which will benefit America in the long run. And also, too, it's like it's because the liberals shit on George W. Bush for like 7 of the 8 years that he was the president, and now it's their time to say "fuck you" back, and that's what they're doing.
Yeah, it's a lot of child's play.
Yeah,
it's it makes you yearn for the days where Congress actually worked, where the government worked together.
But you also have a visible minority that came out of nowhere that basically caught Americans' attention because quote-unquote racism, but nobody can ever admit that, and they're holding Congress hostage, right?
Well, to tell you the truth, I don't really know. I can't really comment much on political rhetoric right now.
Yeah.
I actually don't know. I haven't heard much racist sentiment against the president. And if I had heard it, I wouldn't listen to it. If there is that kind of bigotry going on, it's something that's away from me, and I'm just glad for that.
No, I just think it's an unconscious thing. But anyways, watch The West Wing because it's a great show, and I think you would enjoy it. And Downton and West Wing are great shows to watch with your spouse because they're not violent. They're not. Pardon?
Go on.
No, they're not violent. They're not overly sexual, and they're smart. They're smart shows that appeal to everybody.
Down is something that I can probably definitely dig with my wife. That she loves period drama.
She'll love it.
She's not offended by violence, but definitely they're. I'm currently showing her the entire. I'm going through the entire thing of Breaking Bad. We're on the second season.
Yeah.
And it's kind of funny. It's like there's this little thing that happened in season 2, and my wife's all like, "Oh, I can't handle it." Something you gotta get through. You ain't seen nothing. Wait till you get to season 5.
See, that's the thing, though. Show her Downton Abbey. It's like you'll like it yourself. There's none of that stuff going on. You know what I mean? There's none of that stuff going on, which makes it.
Did you ever see Gosford Park?
Yeah, it's the same creator who wrote Gosford Park. It's the same. It's the guy who wrote the screenplay. Is the creator of the show.
Right.
Yeah.
I love that. I love that dynamic, which of service and upper class, and there's separate storylines. And I understand that's the general dynamic.
Yeah, that's what the show is. It's great. It's great stuff. I love it. Even though so we've done our list. The only show we haven't talked about is Seinfeld. I have it on my top 5-10 list, and basically, before we leave, any comments on Seinfeld? Would it be any close to your top 10 list?
Sure, I love Seinfeld. I have the entire history in my own library. It's I'd say the only reason why I didn't make Seinfeld in the top 10 is probably because I don't know how entertaining Seinfeld will be in 10 years.
I think it will stay. But the reason why I have it on there is because, like Sopranos, it changed television. It kind of reinvented the comedy genre, which needed a reinvention.
Yeah, and I think that Seinfeld kind of lives on right now in the form of Louis. Is that in terms of a central protagonist who's a wise guy comedian.
Yeah.
His perspective. I always describe, whenever anyone asks me what is Louis about, I say Louis is basically Seinfeld if he didn't have any friends. but I love the energy of Seinfeld.
I don't know if I agree with that, because I think that Louis has a heart. Louis has a certain emotion to him, and he tries and he struggles to be a good dad and a good guy, whereas Seinfeld didn't really give a shit.
Oh, completely. Seinfeld is a completely plastic character next to Louis. Louis is somebody that you could relate to and that you'd want to be friends with.
He tries, he always tries hard, Louis.
Yeah, and he's a very believable, he's a very relatable person. And one of the things I've always liked about Louis is how Louis C.K. messes with the story format. You ever notice that, sometimes Louis has a brother, sometimes he has a sister?
Yeah.
and that the past histories don't ever really match up. That's rare. That's rare for a television show to have that kind of. And
he sometimes splits the shows in two, right? Like, he has two different kinds. Like, the first half is one plot, the second half is another plot. But yeah, I want to see where it's going to go. It could hit my top 10 list eventually. But at that note, we have our top 10 list. We both seem to enjoy. We seem to respect both of our lists, correct?
Absolutely. Yeah, I think we touched everything.
And we're very central in our generation, but also in the last 10 years, it seems to be the best time for television.
I'm always open to checking out new shows. Let me ask you this, Matt. Out of all the new shows that have come out this fall, which one are you holding the most promise for?
Masters of Sex.
I've taped it. I haven't seen it yet, but I love Lizzie Kaplan. So
very, very sharp, very, very smart pilot. And someone was, I think it was my sister-in-law, was saying it's like Mad Men meets Boardwalk Empire without the violence. Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah.
I'm interested in the scene where. I'm sorry, go on.
No, it's a true life story as well, right? Because it could have easily been a movie, but they decided to make a TV show out of it. Right.
Kind of like, I don't know much about the history of Dr. Masters, but it's one of the things that as soon as I see it, I'm sure I'm going to read up on it and see how accurate it was, and just out of curiosity as background. It's one of the things I love about period drama.
All right. On that note, let's keep watching some television, and maybe we'll revisit this list in about 5 years from now.
I'm predicting that my list next year is going to have American Horror Story Coven.
Yeah, American. But we also did the Walking Dead podcast. Was the Walking Dead would it even come close to the top 10 list?
Very interested to see what's going to go on with the Walking Dead. I think
the third showrunner in 5 years, right?
Yeah. They're going all over the place for that one.
Yeah.